Hello and welcome to episode 184 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. Thanks for joining us this evening. We are not live, of course. You are watching this as a taped episode, but there are so many big races to cover this weekend. We had to do a tape show. This one will be covering the unbelievable races and card at Santa Anita this Saturday. There's a Breeders' Cup Win in You're In prep race along with other big time prep races. You can see before I talk about, of course, my co-host on the screen. Subscribe on the bottom right hand side of the screen right there. Hit that notification bell, which will tell you when new content will arise. Smash that thumbs up button. We'd really appreciate it. Of course, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Anchor as well. Very exciting. We got to talk about this. We've got a race day blog. It used to be called the Race Day Blog. It is now called Power Picks. And these are fantastic picks, spot plays, ABC, grids, pick 4, pick 5, pick 6s. Now is the time to do it. We've got huge races coming up in October and, of course, November for the Breeders' Cup. Please subscribe to the HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks. All the information is not only on the banner on the bottom, but also the screen below the video player. You sign up through Patreon. It's only $16 for the entire month. You receive it on Saturdays. I cannot highly recommend it enough. You also see Pete's and Paul's picks as well. And, of course, we also have a fantastic website for more information, hhhracingpodcast.com. And then finally, of course, on all of our screens here, you can see where you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at HKravitz. Pete is at PVisco28. And Paul at PKHcom horsey. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
What's going on, Howard? Paul?
Everything's great. A lot of work this week, Pete. Thank God we're getting time and a half. That's all
I know. Hey,
Fantastic.
real quick, Paul. It's a real nice hat you have. Where'd that come from?
This came from the Pennsylvania Derby.
Oh, I wonder. Oh, look at
wow.
this!
Wow.
Look at
Wow.
this! That is a
Wow.
very. Oops! There it is.
And just like your check for this show, my hat is in the mail. I believe, is that correct?
You never know.
You never know.
You never know,
right.
Howard.
Obviously,
Paul,
the
wouldn't be
mail
the-
knows who's important. The
wouldn't be the
USPS
first-
knows.
It wouldn't be the first thing that I've got from the mail from Paul, so you never know.
That's right,
Paul
you
knows what
never
I'm
know.
talking about. Guys, also we want to tell the listeners out there and the viewers, we had a fantastic show, episode 183, that was sent out recently on our YouTube channel with Jason Blewett, who did a great job on the show from West Point Thoroughbreds. We covered the late pick 5 at Belmont at Aqueduct, including many BC preps there. So after you watch this show for Santa Anita, please go to our YouTube channel and check out episode 183 with Jason Blewett and the gang, as we had a fantastic show and discussion covering Belmont and Aqueduct races this Saturday. Guys, let's hop right to it. We're going to talk about, we're not going to talk about the late pick 5 here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about the stake races on Santa Anita. There are 5 of them, guys. And I go to my screen, Pete, as you handicapped all 5, and Paul, you answer the question after Pete. My only question lead in is, which horse are you most excited seeing and or betting at Santa Anita on Saturday? I did not prep them for that, so we'll see what they have to say.
Oh, let's see. So I think the most exciting horse, just in terms of maybe biggest potential off the top of my head, I would say maybe Country Grammar, just because if he has a good performance, he could potentially be at least a contender. I know Flightline blew his doors off last time, but in theory, he'd at least be a contender for the biggest Breeders' Cup race. So anytime you can have that, I think it adds a little bit more intrigue. But that's just because I don't remember who's in a couple of the other races. So that's the first one that came to mind.
Anything come to mind to you off the top of your head, Paul?
Well, I mean, there's certainly, nothing like we're going to see at the Aqueduct card, where we're looking forward to Life is Good, coming back. And, we know that as far as the Awesome Again horses, we already know that Flightline has destroyed a few of them once and he'll do it again. I'm looking forward to betting a horse in the Santa Anita Sprint, which I know we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
It's a horse whose second start U.S., and we'll talk about it when we get there. Toto
Okay.
Fino.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We will be talking about that. Also, want to mention next Tuesday we have a great show that we're also going to be touting on our Aqueduct show. So make sure you check that out. Plus, if you have not watched or even see us live on the Aqueduct show, yours truly had a very exciting day today that we talked about on the Aqueduct show. Sort of a first time event for me. I'll just leave it at that. And also, myself and Kyle Roscoe are going to be going to an exciting contest this Saturday. Anyway, please make sure you check out the Aqueduct Show episode 183 as well. All right, guys, let's get to we're on episode 184. My mind's all over the place. Let's get to the PPs is what I meant to say, guys. We're going to be covering races 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to be going a little bit quicker. This is not a pick 5 show. So all you serial horizontal players out there, in case there are any, sorry about that. But we are going to be covering 5 stake races. Let me bring up the PPs right now, guys.
And Howard, we're going to have our
Yeah.
pick 5. This is going to be covered in the power picks, though, correct?
Yes.
So if people do want to see our pick 5 grids and picks, they'll be in the power picks on Saturday. So if you're a subscriber, great. If you're not a subscriber and you want it, subscribe before the weekend so you can get them on Saturday.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. All of our pick 5 grids, late pick 5 grids at Santa Anita for Saturday will be on power picks. Guys, let's start with race 3 here. Race 3 is the first stake race. It's the John Henry Turf Championship Stakes Saturday at Santa Anita opening weekend there. It's going to be at approximately 4:34 Eastern Standard Time, a mile quarter on the turf, $200,000. We see a lot of horses that we've seen lately. Moreline favorite is the number 1 Gold Phoenix, who just won last time for many people on this show. And as I bring up our banners, there's the banner right there. You can see the picks, all 3 of us. P, let's go to you first. You're going to be going with the same horse that I like in this race, Cash Equity for D'Amato and Hector Barrios.
Yeah. This one, I just think I was looking at it, and this is a pretty even field, I think, up and down. But what I like, it's funny because off the show we were talking about geldings in a different context, but this one is a first time gelding, which I always sort of like as a little bit of an angle. But this one, it came over from France and ran really well in its first 2 starts, an optional, an optional claiming allowance level. So then it moves up to the graded stakes, but it just got a horrible trip. And it was, I think if I'm remembering correctly, it was sort of tight and then it was bothered and then it was, you could read that in the notes, but it just didn't get the best trip. So I don't know if you got to see this horse's full potential at a graded stakes level. I thought Giroux, I was actually happy that Giroux was off because I really didn't understand the ride in that race either. I thought he didn't take advantage of some potential holes. So we get Barrios, who we've talked about on this show many times, has been riding great. So I just sort of like this one and think this one has a little bit of potential. Again, we like those that have some upside potential, and I think this one may have it and just didn't get the chance to show it in that last one.
I agree, but I will echo your sentiments in just a minute. You've got the 1 in second, Pete, and we're going to go through this a lot more quickly. All of us in general are against the 1, at least today, Pete. It would seem that way, or for Saturday, of course.
Honestly, it was just, this is a horse I know a few of us touted on the show that we did for the Del Mar handicap and really liked this horse. That day, I think there was a little bit more pace signed on, so it made a little bit more sense to have some horses coming off the pace. And if you could see, Gold Phoenix, Masterpiece, and Dicey Mochar are all closers, and they ran 1, 2, 3. This one, there's really no pace, and Master of Foxhounds looks like the only real pace. And that's another reason why I kind of like the 6. I thought the 6 would at least be, if breaks well, would be sitting a little bit closer to Master of Foxhounds and maybe can get the jump on the deeper closers. But so I like the 1 as a horse. I just don't know if he's going to get the setup that he needs in this race. Yeah,
it sure seemed like last time was the time for Gold Phoenix, but I suppose he could win again. I just would hate the price here. Paul, you're going with a horse. I shouldn't say a fresh face because this horse has run on the West Coast for Neil Drysdale. Breakpoint. This is a horse that I've actually bet in the past and has just been thoroughly disappointing in his U.S. starts. But you think maybe he can upset the field on Saturday?
Well, he hasn't been disappointing in his only start on the West Coast. He's had
Very
one
true.
and he's won it, and I'm a big fan of East Coast horses, turf horses going west. And, and the last race was off a few months layoff. And, Kentucky Downs, as you know, Howard, not only for the horses, but for the gamblers, it seems to be hit or miss. I understand there were a lot of misses this year. But I'm going to throw that out, and I do agree with Pete. Although I think this too is going to be no worse than off the floor, and I'm not going to be shocked when Tyler Bays takes his horse to the lead and tries to replicate what he did in the San Juan Capistrano. So I do
that's the
agree.
hope. Yeah,
I don't think there is much pace. I'm looking for another one of those miles that first mile up in the the mid to high 130s, and hopefully he has enough left in the tank. Think Neil Drysdale is an exceptional turf trainer, especially, and I think this horse has a pretty good shot at it. Could be a decent price.
Okay. Quickly, I like cash equity also, along with Pete. Now, I'm not going to show the last replay. Pete, it wasn't as bad as the short comments, at least in my opinion. I think the short comments make it look a lot worse than it actually was. I sort of like the time off, the new gelding. Hector Barrios is riding great. And I think Barrios, guys, I mentioned him on the show. We talked a little bit about how a great meet that he had Del Mar. I think he's going to feel internally like he needs to prove it again at Santa Anita. So I'm not suggesting that he's going to win because he has to prove something to everyone. But I just think there's that extra incentive, perhaps, that might help Barrios even more, guys. And I still think he's going to be a bit underrated in some of these races. I agree with both you guys. I think Master Foxhounds, who I've been off in general lately, I think he's interesting in this spot. It's shorter distance. There's not a lot of speed in this race. I think he's going to run a big race. The 5-2 morning line, to me, though, is completely ridiculous. But if he was like 4-1, 9-2, I would put a little win bet on him. I'm going 6-4-1 in the John Henry. Guys, let's go on to the next race as I showed here. The next stake race of the day. And they only have one win in your in. So these are not win in your in Breeders' Cup races. I will tell you which one it's going to be. But they are fantastic races. And a lot of these horses will be prepping out of this into the Breeders' Cup. There's, you see on the screen, this is race 5, everyone. Race 5 on Saturday at Santa Anita. It's the City of Hope Mile. It's a grade 2. Let me go full screen here. Whoop, why didn't that work? There we go. Grade 2, approximately 5:38 Eastern Standard Time. Another $200,000 purse. Like I said, 1 mile on the turf. There you see the field. The morning line favorite is the number 3, Beyond Brilliant, a speedy horse for Sheriff and Victor Espinoza. Paul, let's go to you. You're going to go with the number 2, Aradeo, for Polanco and the aforementioned Barrios, who did run a big race last time.
Yeah, I thought he did run well last time. And again, we talk about morning lines and how we don't really pay that much attention when we handicap. But I'll tell you one thing: if this 3 goes 6-5, he can beat me all day and half day on Sunday. He's definitely got some class. You see all the grade 1s and 2s and has some speed. But the cutback on turf is not necessarily as effective as the cutback on dirt. And I really believe the mile turf is one of those distances that you really want to be somewhat of a specialist. And he's run it once and hasn't won. And again, he's certainly a main contender, but I have no problem trying to beat him, and I have less of a problem trying to beat him if he's going to be 6-5.
He's the 3 right here. Right behind him is Hong Kong Harry, the 5, who won the race. He got an absolutely great ride and perfect trip. Paul just wasn't good enough to beat Hong Kong Harry, but certainly put in a nice effort. Although I will say the pace did collapse. And the 7 right here is Kafkin Peak, also in this race on Saturday, Paul.
Yeah, and that's my second horse. I think in this race, that horse, especially from the hedge, the rail, promises to get a pretty good trip with Rispoli inside. So I am using Captain Peak will be on my ticket and will be very likely an A in my. This is not in the pick 5, so it doesn't matter. He needs no letter grade from me.
Right. Well, that's okay. We can still tell people how strongly we feel about the horses here.
Yeah, I think this horse is pretty good, Howard. D'Amato's got 3 in the race, and he dominates turf out there. So you got to think he's going to have a pretty good shot at winning with one of them.
Okay.
No, he has 2. Pardon me. He had 3 in the last race. He has 2 in this race.
Okay. Pete, you're going with Airedale also. You have the 3 who I really like a lot, despite the morning line. Beyond Brilliant. Why don't you talk a minute about this horse, Pete?
Yeah, I mean it's not overly complicated. When you have a horse that has this much of a speed advantage, it's hard to leave them off a ticket. And I know what Paul said, and I agree with that. The cutback isn't always as great on the turf as it is on dirt, but this still is the most dominant speed horse, especially based on the time form figures. So it wouldn't shock anyone if this horse just got away. Now I agree, it hasn't had a great record at Santa Anita. That was sort of why I was comfortable, aside from the price, with the 2, and I really like the 2 anyway. But I think this one is just hard to ignore because it could just as easily just get on the front, go, and they never catch him.
That's how I see it. I would be surprised if this horse loses. And you know what, guys? Very briefly, I'm against the 1 and the 2. I just they fell into a perfect situation in their last race. It was a very fast pace, and they both got pretty much great trips, especially Aradeo. I am very, very, very interested, guys, in the 5, Prince Obama, for an exacta with Beyond Brilliant. I'm not going to take too much time here, but just watch the last replay. I know sometimes I maybe overblow the in-between horse thing, but if you watch the replay of the 5 last time, I thought he was in an uncomfortable spot a few times, and he closed very well. Yes, he's got to step up, but you know what? A 90 versus a 93, 4, and 5, how much does he really need to step up? Second start off the layoff for an improving 4-year-old for D'Amato and Hernandez, and he's going to be a bigger price than the 1 and 2. Sign me up for Prince Obama. Following riding with Biden, no, I'm not getting political. This past weekend, this time I like Obama for second. I recommend everyone look into this horse. I don't know if he can win, but I think he would be a fantastic horse to fill out your exacta or your tries in those kind of back wheel plays that I like, guys. The number 5, Prince Obama.
Yeah, I had that one as a B too. I liked it. Was an ambitious, sort of an ambitious spot for D'Amato to put this horse in. So you figure he's got to have some confidence in him. So that's always a good thing too.
Totally agree. Let's go on to the next stake race, guys. The next stake race is race 6, and this does, I believe, start the pick 5. Is that right, guys?
Yes.
Correct.
It does. The late pick
but
5.
again, we're not covering the pick 5 on tonight's show. We're just covering stake races. But this does start the pick 5s. I go ahead and press a bunch of buttons. On the bottom of the screen, you can see our picks. This is Santa Anita Sprint Championship. It's a grade 2, again, $200,000, 6 furlongs. Maybe some of these horses are going to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I guess we'll have to see. There is the field. This field, guys, has one horse that I believe is the most interesting horse. I'm not saying the best horse, but to me, the most interesting horse of the entire weekend on either coast, and happens to be the morning line favorite. That's the number 2, Forbidden Kingdom, who had a fantastic early 3-year-old campaign, has had some injury issues and colic and whatnot, is back for Mandela and Juan Hernandez. But Pete and Paul and myself, wow, look at this. All 3 of us have some love for the Chilean bred who won last time on, I believe it was a big, was that a big pick 6 carryover day, if I remember correctly, guys, who went off at 5-1, Toto Fino. Pete, what does you like about this horse ridden by Rispoli on Saturday?
I mean, I like some of the simple stuff. The 4 for 4 at the distance. This horse is funny though because it's an all or nothing. So either this isn't one of those back wheel horses, Howard, because this one either wins 10 out of 15, no seconds, no thirds. So this one either wins or goes in the toilet. So I'm hoping that this time is a win. But I like it picks up Rispoli. Not that we don't like Barrios, but it's if you're going to change, I think that's sort of probably an upgrade, at least experience wise. And then if you look at that last race, it was a bit lower company. So this is a pretty big step up, but he came back with a nice buyer. 3 horses have run out of that race and all of them have won. So it's a quality field, even though it wasn't only an optional claimer, 40K. good recent work. So, that means it's probably holding his form still. And then I like the fact that it was able to sit off. So it looks like Forbidden Kingdom and probably Kid Corleone, there's some speed here. We know Forbidden Kingdom is going to be speed. So if Forbidden Kingdom isn't sharp off the layoff, or if Kid Corleone or whoever else kind of softens him up a little bit, I think we could have Totofino sitting right off and could make the move and get first run on them and hopefully blow by.
Paul, is that how you see the pace complexion? We actually all are 7-2. Why don't you talk about Forbidden Kingdom a little bit, Paul? I think we were all pretty big fans of this horse. I mean, who wasn't in the spring? He looked like he could be a serious Kentucky Derby threat, and then things really went south. This is an aggressive placing to me for Mandela, who's usually in general, Paul, a bit, conservative in nature. So you have to take that as a positive, I would think.
Yeah, you'd have to wonder what his end game is. If he, where would he go from here? I look at this. This race to me, Howard, is all about value and how you're supposed to bet, and that doesn't mean you're always going to win, but CZ Rocket is going to take money. A 7-2 morning line coming off an awful race, but people are going to see in the PPs. You only have to go down 4, and you come to last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint. Okay, this horse in his day was as good as any sprinter in the country. He is going to take money. I think you're supposed to bet against him. I think at age 8, he's over the top, and I think he's on the downside. Forbidden Kingdom, I think you're supposed to bet against him only because of the long layoff, the shorter distance, and the fact that he's going to be the favorite. Look, he could go the lead and win this race by 12. Okay, Mandela, you're right, Howard. This was definitely a Derby hopeful for Richard Mandela, and something went awry, obviously, in the Santa Anita Derby. But, he also did lose to Tabor, Messier, and Happy Jack. So I think because of the way the betting, I anticipate the betting, you're supposed to bet against those two horses. I think the 7 has the best post in this race. If the other speed he can sit outside of, and I'm just hoping he can duplicate his last race. So he's a total value play for me, but with you two knuckleheads on him, where the hell's my value?
You know what, guys? There's a lot of speed in this race. I almost put the number 4, None Above the Law, in second. Paul, I like your clever third place opinion. This is
I almost put him in second too, Howard.
I really consider it because this race smells like something weird. It could fall apart. And by the way, for those of you that are going to be watching Kyle and myself compete Saturday in the Hawthorne Invitational, Paul and Pete, you might be interested in this. We have $200 to bet on 6 mandatory races. And this race is one of the mandatory races. So you have to bet exactly $200. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do in this race with my $200. But I think I'm going to try to use the 4 somewhere, maybe underneath an exacta or try. I think None Above the Law is interesting. I know I don't have him in the top 3, but I just want to mention that. Guys, I really don't know what's going to happen with the pace situation. It just looks fast. And I agree, Totofino can sit off. I don't know if he's good enough. This is a class test, but you know what? This is not the strongest sprint dirt race I've seen in my lifetime. So why not? I love outside posts in races with a lot of speed in it. I'm going Totofino. Would I put $200 to win on him in the contest on Saturday? Most likely not. But this is a tough race and a small field. Guys, let's go to race 7. Race 7, I believe, is the one winning you're in if it's the race I remember. And it is not. It's the last one we're going to talk about. This is the Eddie D. And Paul, I'm going to go to you first here in a second because I'm sure you had a big conundrum with 2 horses that I don't know if they're your sons, but I know you like both of them. This is the Eddie D Stakes. They're going down the hill. Isn't it great going back down the hill, guys? I love it. They're going back down the hill. 6.5, of course, on the turf. It's a nice field of 9. It's wide open. The morning line favorite is one of the horses that Paul's been chasing. Maybe Pete as well. I can't remember. But the number 4, Gregorian Enchant for D'Amato, who has also Coulthard in this race, who's all at 6-1. Paul, we're going to go to you first. You are going with Gregorian Enchant, but we also have to talk about the horse who you have in second, and Pete and I are staying loyal to number 9, Tango. Paul, you're up first to dance away in this race.
Yeah, again, I did like Gregorian Chant a lot the last time, and it was just left with too much to do. I do think there is enough pace in this race. He is cutting back, but the 6.5 down the hill is a little different animal, so to speak, and I do think probably a little better for closers than a 6.5, just straight flat. I'm looking at Air Force Red with speed. I'm looking at Goliad with speed. Barristan the Bold is coming off 5 furlong races. You got to figure that he's going to go. The 8 Dubai Key. Yeah. Dubai Key has a lot of speed, and the aforementioned Tango 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 will be sitting right off of it. So actually may get a wide trip now that we're talking about it. But yeah, I think with the proper pace. I think this horse is right in the picture.
I agree with you. And you mentioned Tango, Tango, Tango. I'll let Pete and I talk about Tango, Tango, Tango. I do disagree with one thing that Paul said, but Pete, I don't want to steal your thunder. We're staying loyal to this horse. I think he's fascinating, absolutely fascinating in the spot.
Yeah, and I think you liked him in the Del Mar handicap, didn't you?
Sure did.
Wasn't that your pick on the show,
Paul,
I think, or at least?
Yeah, myself and Paul.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right, because that was the one we used in the head-to-head competition.
Yes, we did.
I think. Yes, and he sort of disappointed, but
now
we're getting.
Okay. I mean,
no,
right,
he ran well.
Yeah,
from that perspective. But I everything Paul said is sort of true. Where there's multiple speed horses in here, so I think we could get something to run into. I think Tango 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 is a little bit versatile enough where it can be a little farther back or be close enough to be sitting right off that speed. So I like that versatility. I also like the jockey change a little bit. Cannon is sort of, hadn't been the best in 22 so far, and Fry like a little bit better. And then I just like the fact that the cutback. So this horse is run one race under a mile. One wasn't the highest buyer, wasn't the best of companies, but at least we know that this horse can sprint or at least go. And, the 6.5 down the hill plays a little closer to a route race anyway. So I think that'll be right up this horse's alley. Plus, I just like the horses that this one is run against. I mean, we just talked about Gold Phoenix and those guys and Hong Kong Harry and Set Piece. And that's some nice horses. I mean, even you go back, you see Yabir and Soldier Rising and all them. So I just think this one at a price. And then you see that beautiful work. Look at that 4 furlong, 45 work. Yeah. First out of 39, but just a 45 work like that is crazy. I don't care how fast the track is. That's a quality work, even though it was on the dirt. So this one just seems to be in form, and I just like it, especially at that 8-1 price.
Just one word of caution for people that see a work like that. I'm going to have to watch it. I will admit that I've not watched that work yet. I'm actually more concerned about that work rather than excited. And I'm just hoping he was doing it somewhat easily, because that is a very fast work for a turf horse. But you hit every point I want to make, Pete. This horse wants to turn back. He's made middle move after middle move after middle move. I think this distance could be fantastic. I love turnbacks down the hill. I don't like turf turnbacks in general, guys, but down the hill especially, I think it's one of the best places it works. Paul, I think he's going to be two things I want to push back a little bit on, Paul. I think he's going to be a little bit off it, number one. And number two, you want to be on those outside posts, Paul, because remember, that short little bend is actually a right-hand turn. So the outside numbers down the hill are actually better than the inside numbers. So I just want to point that out again for people who don't recall the down the hill configuration. I really like this horse. I'm fascinated to see what price he is. Very quickly, I'll talk about the 5, who neither one of you mentioned. I have Coulthard in second. Going along with sort of what you both said, I think I want a closer in this race. And he's the closer. It's more the fresh face for D'Amato again, Paul. So I like Gregorian Chant. This is my sort of other Gregorian Chant, but I think he's younger, obviously. Vasquez has been riding fantastic, if people have been paying attention, at Los Alamitos. I see, and he's ridden this horse before. And that last race was a little bit wide in the green flash, and it was really hard to close going 5 furlongs at Del Mar. So Paul's Gregorian Chant pick is sort of my clever number 5, Coulthard in second. But I am fascinated to see what Tango
Hey, Howard, one more
does.
thing on this
Yeah.
race, and I don't want to ruin Pete's stats of the day, but
No.
Jack Sisterson moved this operation to the West Coast for Del Mar, did not win. And I think Jack's a very good trainer, but numbers are numbers. Anyone care to know when he saddled his last winner?
Oh boy.
Ooh.
I don't want to spoil. I don't want to rain on your Tango parade.
I'm going to guess it was at Belmont, is all I'm going to say. I don't
It
know.
was at Belmont. It was
Okay.
on May 1st.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Correct.
Who was it with? Do you have the horse?
As a matter of fact, I do. That's my job, Howard. It's a game of information. Anejo.
Oh,
Okay, wait, didn't Anejo just come back and win? Is that the same Anejo that came back and won
I think so.
a few days ago that beat me out of a freaking pick 5?
Last
weekend,
weekend, was the favorite.
ran.
Belmont Park. It was an allowance race. It was 3 and up state breds.
Yeah.
On mile and a 16th on the dirt.
Hey,
There
Paul,
you
I
go.
did have him at 2 for 52 in graded stakes on the turf. So yeah, I wasn't super pleased about the stats, but there was actually most of these trainers in these configuration had some pretty rugged stats. So I'm like, well, one of them's got to win. Real quick on Coulthard, the only thing I wanted to say, because Howard mentioned that one, my only concern with that one was that it seemed to run its best 2 races at the 5 furlong. So I didn't know if just prefers a little bit shorter. So who knows? I guess we'll see when it happens. But I mean, who the hell knows?
I mean, I don't know if he's been down the hill. I took the PPs off, but I know that Tingo has not. That can be problematic when they cross over the dirt. I mean, you want
He actually has. It looks.
experience.
Yeah, he has. It looks
So,
like. I
okay,
assume all the
interesting.
6.5 in 2022 were down the hill, or no? Right?
Okay.
Well, isn't it the ones with Pete? Is it the ones with the
It's-
asterisks on the
I think
PPs?
so. Right? I think so.
Yeah, I think Coulthard's 0 for 4 down the hill.
Yeah, that was another thing. I think. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to mention that just in case people look at that one.
Yeah. Guys, let's talk about the last race that we're going to cover here on tonight's show. And hopefully you've enjoyed the episode 184 here as we cover Santa Anita this evening. This is the win and you're in. This is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup. The winner gets several different types of paid expenses. We're not going to go through it all. It's the Awesome again. It is a grade 1. It's $300,000. They're going 1 mile and 1/8 on the dirt. You see a lot of familiar faces from the Pacific the Flightline Classic, sorry. The morning line favorite here on Saturday is going to be, no surprise, the number 4 Country Grammar, who was the second choice against Flightline in the Pacific Classic. Of course, Baffert and Juan Hernandez. We're going to have Paul go first here. Paul and Pete, actually, are going to go with the number 7 Express Train for Sheriffs and Espinoza. Paul?
Yeah, the Pacific Classic is obviously a tough read because it was such a demolition. How do you judge the other horses? Obviously, you don't judge them against Flightline, but with the race being so early decided by him, and you're looking at horses who lost by 26 lengths. The horse that Pete and I picked lost by 26 lengths, which typically wouldn't excite you. But I do think he is a little bit of a horse for course. I think if you throw that Pacific Classic out off the, getting a nosebleed running with Flightline.
Hey, Paul, look at the screen. If you throw both Pacific Classics out, maybe he just hates the Pacific Classic. That was the note that I had, because I'm like, his form looks fantastic if you just cut the Pacific Classics off his form.
Well, I mean, no one else in the race. Tripoli. You look at three consecutive triple-digit buyers, and it's him and it's Tripoli, at least on the this version of the PP. So, yeah, I think he sits an okay trip from there. Obviously, it's a long run to the turn at 1.25 miles on dirt. The distance is not a question, as it is for Summon here. Obviously, not for Country Grammar. And I do think, by the nature of running second to Flightline, that Country, and even though Country Grammar, I know he won the Dubai race, but I really think he's going to be probably overbet a little bit just because people will look at that as a win, and I don't know that that's necessarily the case.
Pete, your thoughts on this race?
Yeah, so my thing with Express Train, I basically agree with everything Paul said 100%, which is why I went with Express Train as well.
And
Like,
that's why you have a hat, Pete.
I mean, that's exactly. I mean, this is why I get my mail first, even if you maybe not even getting the mail. I don't even know, but let me just throw it on the screen one more time just to rub it in. But yeah, so Express Train loves Santa Anita, is good at the distance. And one thing you notice on the PPs, if you could bring them up on the screen quick, Howard, is this horse fires second off the layoff. Where if you go back to December 2020, the second one in the San Pasquale pops a 103 buyer and a win off a not as great performance in the Malibu. I mean, it lost to Charlatan, so that's no slouch. Then in the San Pasquale again, he pops 100 buyer, second off the layoff. So
Right
he
there,
could
yeah.
maybe he likes that. He gets that one under his belt and then he fires the next one out. So I like that as well. And again, I think aside from Country Grammar, everyone has knocks in here. And I think Country Grammar, maybe he's just not as good as he was. I mean, he hasn't taken like that next level up, even from a buyer standpoint. Like he got killed by Flightline, but he ran a 100 buyer. The San Diego was a 99. So maybe that's where he's going to be. Maybe that's the hope, is if he's a really low price and he's not like above and beyond better than everyone in this field, then I think some of the others have a shot.
Some people might be wondering as they look on the scroll at the bottom of the screen, Howard, do you have a typo? Have you lost your cotton picking mind? Where's Country Grammar in Howard's top three? I'll tell you where Country Grammar is. Nowhere. That's where Country Grammar is in my top three. Baffert has many horses, guys. I want to mention that. So you gotta be careful of the pace scenario because he might let one go and like a defunded might get loose. Just I want to make everyone aware that Baffert has, I think, 4 in this race.
Yeah.
Or 3. Yeah, 4, right? Here's my thought, guys. I do like the 7. I think the 7 can win. I'm going with Royal Ship. He's much better at Santa Anita than Del Mar in general. He's extremely inconsistent. I mean, very inconsistent. But I think he loves Del Mar. I think mile and eighth is perfect. I think Smith is going to have him sitting right off the lead, getting that kind of Taba trip, and I like him a lot. I'm going to go with Royal Ship on top. The 5 Tripoli, who was really good last year, he's been working exceptionally well. And I've heard some good things about how he's been working and looking. You see at the bottom of the screen. And guys, I think there could be a bunch of pace in this race. So Tripoli might be the best closer in this race. I mean, Express Train, who you guys mentioned, Royal Ship, they all want to be pretty close. It could get a little bit hot. I think Tripoli is the one that might come over the top and upset the field, possibly. Then I've got your 7 second as I go full screen. There it is, guys. There he is. There's Express Train right there. I should take down the banner. I've got him right behind me. I'm going 2, 5, 7. Yes, Country Grammar obviously can win, but it's sort of I agree with what I think Paul mentioned. It. I think he's going to be way over bet, and I think he hasn't really taken that big step. A lot of people thought maybe Paul he could win the Breeders' Cup Classic. It just I think they were really gearing up for the Pacific Classic. I mean, he was sort of the horse that everyone thought could beat Flightline, and just his heart was ripped away from him. And I don't know. I'm going to go against Country Grammar Saturday, guys. He seems too logical, and it seems like a great spot to bet against. As I take the banner off the screen again, we don't have a pick 5 to show you, guys. We have about 2 minutes left for tonight's show. Final thoughts about Saturday. Pete, is there again a horse you're interested in betting the most in that sequence, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think price-wise, the one horse that I like the best is Tango, 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 if he can get the trip that we're looking for, and if we can get a little bit of speed up there. So at least that one, from a price standpoint, is the one I'm looking most forward to betting, or at least having on a ticket in one way or another.
Yeah. Paul, final thoughts on Santa Anita. It is opening weekend. The turf's obviously going to be beautiful. The rails will be down. It should play, you think, fairly.
Yeah, it should be all systems go. I agree, and it's a final thoughts. It's a hell of a day of racing when you get into these Santa Anita races. The Aqueduct card's not even going to be over yet. This third race at Santa Anita is 4:30. We'll probably be at about the 8th or 9th at Aqueduct. So it's going to require a lot of concentration, which I'm typically not good at.
Yeah. Nah, it's going to be fantastic. Hope everyone's going to bet Santa Anita this Saturday. Again, please look into subscribing to our Power Picks. You can look down below the video player. You can cash big. We've had a fantastic 2022. And last thing, and we'll mention this on the Aqueduct Show, which everyone should also watch, episode 183, which is just came out on the YouTube channel recently. Watch myself and Kyle compete, as you can see on the banner on the screen, live on YouTube, 3 p.m. Eastern. All you need to do is go to the YouTube banner and just type in Hawthorne Racecourse, and you can see myself and Kyle competing live against some of the best handicappers in the country to try to win a BC seat in what is called the Hawthorne Invitational.
Will Matt Miller be participating?
Full disclosure, Matt Miller was obviously invited, but he's going to be visiting his daughter at college, and so he's not able to compete in that. But I'm sure that he will be in it next year. So no Matt Miller due to family obligations, which are always more important. But he'd love to be there.
And Howard, we could put a link on the website too, in case people forget where to go. We could always put a link to the live stream and to whatever else. If there's a leaderboard or whatever else we want to put out there, we can put that on the website.
We put on the Power Picks. I think would be a great idea. So
that too. Yeah. Just so
did the Power Picks? Is the Power Picks given out any pick fives recently?
Let's see. 2 weeks ago, I crushed a pick 5. Last week, Pete, can you remember? I can't remember. Oh, Paul Halloran crushed the pick 5.
I mean, I think it was at this day, right? Wasn't it this day where we got these nice hats?
And then Paul bought me a hat. No. Okay. Anyway, guys, we got to run, as you know. For Pete Visco and Paul Halloran, this has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 184 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Again, please make sure you check out episode 183. It was our live podcast covering Aqueduct this weekend with Jason Blewett. Good luck, everyone, at Santa Anita this Saturday. Take care. Bye-bye.